How has the COVID crisis impacted the operation of the courts, and what are the biggest challenges you faced?
Well, it has unquestionably been the most challenging time in my career. I have been, coming into the courthouse for the last 33 years, and this is my fourth year as chief judge, and I liken it to turning a cruise liner around on a dime. Because basically, on March 17th, we made the decision to really trim down face-to-face hearings within the court system, and we are the trial courts. That's what we do all day long in that big gigantic courthouse and the courthouses throughout the county. We're conducting trials, or we're preparing to do so. So it completely changed the way we did business, and it was a rough few months getting everybody acclimated to remote appearances. So there's never been a more drastic change in the court system than this pandemic. Certainly we have Cat 5 hurricanes that head our way, and for a few days all the court partners scramble and we change things around, but to be going on months and months of really trimming down what we do in the courts has been a huge change.
What's the backlog like right now?
We have an office in Tallahassee, the office of the court administrator, of the trial court administrator, who is actually gathering data. We anticipate that by next summer, statewide, there will be a backlog of over 1 million cases. So, that's throughout the state. And I think that that's just a guess at this juncture. They're continuing to gather data, but I look at the numbers just in our circuit on a bi-monthly, and I can tell you that things are slowing down. And that's because, it's knowing that you could have a jury trial, which really moves a lot of cases along. It really gets people negotiating and going. And so to be in this complete stall, to a large extent, does have a lot of ramifications that there's no jury trials.
Let's talk about the criminal cases. Has that backlog put a crimp in anybody, either defense or prosecutor side? Has it forced them to do business a little differently?
It's forced all of us to do business differently, but I think that the criminal courts have been really impacted, and that's because there's a constitutional right to confrontation that, in most of our divisions, we have been able to adapt and conduct a lot of our hearings remotely, not face to face. So we do have a long list of hearings that we continue to hear face to face. We take all precautions to make sure people remain safe, and the vast majority of those hearings, which we refer to as essential hearings, do occur in the criminal courtrooms. But we have had speedy trial told. We have not been able to impanel any jurors or even grand jurors. So we have a backlog of just individuals who have to be indicted by a grand jury, and we haven't even been able to bring grand juries in. So it's had the hugest impact, in my opinion, on the criminal divisions, because despite the fact that the criminal judges and the criminal bar continue to work arduously and work hard, that's what we do in the criminal division. We go to jury trial week in and week out, and we've been unable to do that. So they're continuing to do motions, and they are adapting as well. But it's sad. There's a lot of people that have been accused of crimes. They're presumed innocent, and they are incarcerated awaiting trial, and we're just having to push it off because of the pandemic. And so it's wildly impacted all of those people.
And the civil side of it, there is a fear among the civil attorneys that I talked with that when this, let's say this ends at the end of the year, that the amount of backlog cases and the limited amount of courtrooms might favor some of the criminal that need to be done right now because of the speedy trial, provisions, and that there's a fear that the people on the civil side will get short shrift.
Well, I certainly have been hearing that fear as well. I get many phone calls from the civil bar, expressing the fact that they have that fear. But here's really what it boils down to. When we start calling jurors in, I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle that I have faced yet, trying to get, we call it juror yield. So even prior to the pandemic, we had a major issue with trying to get jurors in to do their civic duty. And I mean, a shamefully low yield amount. So I'm fearful of how hard it is going to be to get the citizens to come in to do jury trials. But I can tell you this, we have 7 felony jury divisions. That is going to be my priority, to tee up jury trials in that division first in criminal. But they're not going to all go on the same day or the same week. As soon as we start rocking and rolling again, there's going to be issues that come up. I really am seriously doubtful that all of the criminal judges will be in trial at once. So although civil won't be a priority, I don't foresee it's going to be a horribly long time before we're able to also send jurors to the civil courtrooms. You know, the ones that are going to have to wait a while are those cases that are going to require, say, 200 or 300 veneer, a jury possible people that they need to select their jury from, maybe tobacco cases and big cases that are going to last 6 weeks. Those cases are the ones that I think we're going to see a period of time before we're able to get to those. But for your garden variety civil cases, I'm hopeful that there won't be much of a lag between when we start criminal trials and civil trials.
One of the other areas that's been impacted, and I'd like you to comment on how it affects everyday people and your own office as well, is the money lost by the clerks of court just because the lack of speeding tickets, the funding from the state. Luckily in Palm Beach County, commissioners voted to at least give a loan to the clerk's office. But there's the potential, but that pretty much the money is going to be spent by October 1st. And not just here, but all over the area, there could be some very serious cutbacks in the clerk's office. How would that affect the overall justice system?
Well, the clerk is our partner, and we are hand in hand with the clerk all day long in all the courtrooms throughout Palm Beach County and throughout the state. So obviously, if they start having to furlough or their staff is short, then it's going to deeply affect the courts. I don't think that the courts are in a position where we're going to be furloughing individuals, but anytime our partners start to have that, to suffer that way, it impacts the courts.
Some places have attempted to try, like what we're doing right now, except have a jury trial with Zoom. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we presently have 5 circuits throughout the state who are doing a pilot program to investigate the viability of doing trials via Zoom. They actually conducted one in Miami-Dade. It was non-binding, and it's my understanding it was extremely expensive. I think it will be a really long time before we start to see criminal trials go via Zoom. I think maybe more of a hybrid is something that might come to pass, where perhaps we could conduct jury selection instead of having to bring all those individuals into the courthouses, that we would be able to weed out particularly those people that we know pretty soon on are not going to be appropriate for a particular case. In fact, I'm working right now with our clerk to start finding a way to email and then have people on the computer be able to answer lengthy questionnaires, and that we will be able to weed out a lot of individuals that for whatever reason aren't suited for a particular case. So I think that's going to be extremely helpful. I think we have a long road to go before we start seeing any true lengthy trials conducted remotely.
I wanted to close with this. You certainly talked a lot about it, of the challenge of getting jurors to serve in a post-pandemic world. How acceptable would it be if you slowly come back to normal and somebody says, I don't want to go to jury duty, I still have a fear of getting the coronavirus? And is that an acceptable excuse for not doing jury duty?
It's not. And, I think any judge would tell you that it's really disheartening and heartbreaking when you're trying to select jurors. I can tell you it's a question that I am often asked when I'm out. How can I get out of jury service? And, I always say this, and it's really true. Short of military service, it's one of the rare times in your life that your country will call upon you. And if this pandemic hasn't made you patriotic and appreciate the great country we live in, then I don't know what will. So I sure hope that our citizens will step up and recognize the great importance of the jury system. And, I know just a few weeks into it, we got a message, the chief judges, that for the first time since the inception of the jury system in the United States of America, there was not a single jury trial being conducted in the United States anywhere. And I mean, it hit all of us in such a profound way because that is the bedrock of our society. So I sure hope we become more patriotic and we recognize that it's our duty to serve as jurors.
Judge Marx, anything else to add?
I don't think so.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time.
All right, my pleasure.
All righty. Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.